Günaydın. I just very quickly introduce our company. We are based in Istanbul. We're multinational, but small. We're about 30 people in total. We have offices in various countries in Eastern Europe, but our headquarters is in Istanbul, where I live, even though I'm not Turkish. Don't ask me why. We're in the music business, the live music business. So our work, we do different things, but it all involves some form of concerts, shows, performances, etc., whether as promoters or talent buyers or artist representatives. That's what we do. I may be the only person in this room who started with FileMaker #1 in 1985. So I was a very early Mac user, and my supplier recommended FileMaker as a database, and I started using it, and I'm still using it. So that's and for many years, 20, 30 years, I was the only person who would develop the database. So it had to be user friendly. I'm not totally stupid, but I'm not an IT specialist. I have no IT training, so I had to be able to do it myself. And that was the case until 10 years ago, when I just didn't have time anymore to do the work myself. Our interface is quite old-fashioned because it was developed so long ago. But underneath it, a lot of the functionality is probably fairly contemporary. We use the latest version of FileMaker. We just moved to the Capitas server, I'll just talk through a few things which may be of interest, maybe of wider interest. So this was a conversation I was having half an hour ago about the databases we have in the company. And you sort of think, well, we have FileMaker, that's our database. But actually, there's a whole bunch of databases. And we have our websites. We have several. We use MailChimp. We use Excel, of course. We use Apple Calendar. We use Apple Contacts. We use Apple Mail, which is also a database because it goes back for 30 years. We have Apple Music, iTunes. We're in the music business. We listen to a lot of music and we store it and arrange it. I also personally am a photographer, so I use Adobe Lightroom and Portfolio. We have our accountancy program. And most of these programs, they hardly talk to each other. So that's a problem. But of course, as a small business, you don't have a lot of time to invest in developing bespoke solutions for programs to talk to each other. You just sort of manage. You get by. The primary thing for me with FileMaker is user friendliness. This comes above everything else because for us, if the functionality is not user friendly, then it doesn't get used and there's no point. So user friendliness, internal user friendliness in particular, because the people who work in the company are not data specialists, and they may be very good at their job, but if there's a wall between them and using the program, then they just don't use it. And sometimes you find somebody in the company who's doing their own version of the data, and you go, well, we've got this data in the database, but they don't know how to access it properly, and so on and so on. So those are very important issues. Security is an issue. There are two aspects to security. One is internal security. So of course, different people in the company have different levels of access to the database, which is very easy to do in FileMaker. And there's external security because we don't want our database hacked and we don't want to give the information to our competitors, all that kind of stuff. Scripting is absolutely essential to what we do. We have a lot of situations where we're booking an event, for example, Gezgin Salon in Istanbul, and they want to know which artists could be available at what price, on what dates, in what genres. And we have all of that scripted, we have all of that data in the database, the artists part of the database, and we script that so that we can very quickly call upon, produce a list of potentially available artists, which then focus the client on going, well, that's the one, a bit like the ship example, same logic, whether it's ships or artists, you're choosing between lots of options. One ship is like, costs more, and another ship, but it's better. And an artist might cost more, but they're more famous, they sell more tickets, and they might be more available or less available. So all of these questions all of this data is in the artist database, which I'll come to in a moment. But that's a crucial part of our business, the access to artist information, which we upload into the database manually. We're looking at combining this with, there are various services for artist information. There's one called Chartmetric, and there's another called Viberate, and there's a couple more, and we're seeing if we could integrate that data in some way. But for the moment, maybe through AI, it might become possible. Obviously, as a business, competitiveness and productivity are very crucial to what we do. Competitiveness because we're in a very competitive business. So one of our assets, again, very similar to the shipping analogy, is the speed of information and the accuracy of information that we're able to give our clients. And we charge our clients, we charge a commission. That's how we survive as a business. And if the quality of our information is A, better, and B, quicker than our competitors, then we're in business. If it's not, we got a problem. So that's crucial. Productivity is more an internal question, but obviously related to user-friendliness. We want people to be productive. We want them to enjoy their work. We don't want them to be doing boring tasks more than you really have to, and so on and so on. We're a creative industry, creative business, and the people who work in the company tend to be quite creative, which means they're pretty useless at being ordered. So we have to order their creativity so that we can run as a business without killing it. So just very quickly running through this, I take the glasses off. So when I imagined this database, I sort of thought of what are our primary categories of data. There's organizations, very simple, and we have 12,500 of them. And a subset of, and that's sort of the basic information for an organization. There are different layouts, which I won't show now, for each of these categories, which show the data in different forms. People, obviously, there are a lot of people, there are 17,000 of them, and those are the people that we work with mostly. Some of them are my friends, because I just use the same database. But basically, they're people that we work with, and we can change, very easily. If they move jobs or something, we can move them from one company to another. Most crucial part of the database for us is artists. This is the base layout. And you can just see the categories of the data that we use. Where's the artist from? What's their genre? What's their venue level? It's maybe interesting to note when you're in the artist business that there's the price, the cost of an artist is always a negotiation. There's no fixed price for an artist, so it's not like ships. You can't access Robbie Williams and find out what his price is. It doesn't work like that. You have to go to the agent and you negotiate according to the particularities of what you're proposing. And that's a negotiation effectively with the artist who may be not on tour, in which case they want more money, or they may not be interested in playing in Turkey, or whatever other stuff, which influences the price. I hope that makes sense. So the way that I imagined deciding this question was actually to look at the venue level, not the price of the artist. So you know that a certain level of artists can sell 20,000 tickets, which we call a stadium level, and another artist can only sell 200 tickets, which is a club level. And so there are different levels of artists, and we sort the artists according to those levels. If you're a festival and you have a certain budget, then you can, you're looking at, we can find the artists which maybe fit that budget, hopefully, and which may be available, because a lot of artists are not touring at any one point, and there's no point to consider them. And if somebody comes and says, I want the Rolling Stones, and you say, well, they're not touring, so forget it. Even if they've got millions, just forget it. Life is simpler. You don't waste a lot of time talking about stuff which is irrelevant, because it'll never happen. So a lot of what we do is reality checking our clients, who often will arrive with a totally unrealistic idea of what's possible. So venue levels and some internal sorting, availability, which is fundamental. Is the artist on tour? Are they available or not? And we're constantly updating this. And then there's the agency, the management, fee level stuff, which is all confidential. The crew, the production, just a bunch of different information which relates to the artist. And then there's internal things about who is the internal booker for the artist, who is the production manager, and some slightly out of date reference, which we don't use very much these days because it's all, you can Google it immediately anyway. So that's the artists. Events, because we're booking events like, for example, Gezgin Salon or Sonar Istanbul, which just happened at Zulu. And that gives particular information about the events and the offers and so on. It needs updating. There's particular shows. Each particular show, happens. So some shows are part of events. Some are not part of events. They're just a concert. Venue information is really useful because you're dealing with the same venues again and again. So there's base information like the capacity, the kind of venue, the size of the stage, which doesn't change much. And you want to be able to pull that information very quickly and provide it to the agent, for example, the artist agent, so that they can see, okay, these people really know what they're doing. And you don't propose a venue which is irrelevant to that particular artist because it doesn't work technically. And so on. And so we have an awful lot of, we actually don't use this section as much as we do. We should expand it. Labels and publishers, it's for the record companies. Offers, it's when we make an offer for an artist, how much we offered, what the history of the offers was, which is very useful internally because you're trying to understand which offers were accepted, how much money did you pay the artist 3 years ago, and that influences your decision about what you can propose to the artist now, and so on and so on. So that's the basic outline of our database. We are in the middle of upgrading it, which has been a bit of a process, and it was set back by COVID because obviously we were out of business for 2 years, and that affected our finances very severely. So we cut back on a lot of things that were in train in 2019, and now we're just getting back to the point where we're bringing them back so we can go, well, we should make an investment in upgrading FileMaker, for example. We're just adding, I'll go out of this page because it's a little confidential. We're just we have something called the memo book in our company, which is like a kind of, I don't know if every company does it, I guess not, but we have an internal system where we share ideas and information internally, like a kind of mentoring between the different people in the company and new people who come into the company so they don't start from zero. So a lot of procedural stuff, ideas about how you should do what we do, or how you should organize a concert, in fact. Which is basic to what we do, because there's an awful lot of aspects to organizing a concert. So we're trying to, we are integrating that into FileMaker, and I think the idea of, the semantic search is very interesting for that kind of broad data, which doesn't have, it's about something, but it's not very specific, and people don't necessarily know how to ask for that data. So then being able to search for it could, semantically might work very well. What venues, what do you do in a venue that, I don't know what a possible question could be, but how do we market our, stupid question, what are the channels of marketing for us today? I don't know, and you go, well, there's Instagram, and there's this and there's that, and what are the proportions of budget spent between those different forms, and why should we do this and why should we do that, etc. Which are all questions which probably most businesses have to deal with. And the memo book is, I just stay with that a little bit. It's actually very important because there are thousands of memos, most of which written by me. And that's kind of, for me, my legacy as an employer, because that's everything that I've learned from the business by trial and error, by making mistakes, by disasters of one kind or another, I've written down and shared with everybody. But again, that information is useless if the people don't read it and they can't access it. So, and of course you can't read it like a book, it wouldn't work. So you want to be able to access the information when you need it. We also want to add a client access function, which is, again, coming back a bit to the ships example. Of course, we operate on a much smaller level than the big shipping business in Greece, but we still have clients who want to be able to access information immediately. And as long as we decide we want to give the client that access, we want them to be able to access our database or parts of the database with security, so which is the tricky issue. How do you maintain security when you're giving third parties access to your database? We're also right in the middle, in the last few months this year, we've started to go into AI more deeply in terms of market research and artist research. And that's a very interesting aspect of how we might integrate that with FileMaker. Okay, we are, it's something we're working on. It's just very quickly, I can say that the biggest decision you make as a concert promoter is how many tickets are we going to sell? And you do not know. You have to guess. And your guess should be as educated as possible, because otherwise you're going to lose lots of money. So it's a very high-risk business. It's an unstable business. It's a business which goes in waves. There are a lot of factors. So market research and AI helping that research is very crucial, in theory, if it works. I have to finish. If there are any questions, fire them away, and otherwise I'll disappear. Yes?
Do you have an interface for your artists so that they can check what pitches and beats are confirmed, gigs are...
It's something we would like to do, because we have our own roster of artists, and obviously for the artists are always very insecure, and if you didn't update them 3 days ago, they start worrying, do we have any work? What's happening? Are they doing anything for us? So if there was a way they could just access and see, okay, we've received these offers, we're in this phase of negotiation with the promoter, then that would be a nice feature for the artist. It's not essential, but it would be nice to do that. Okay, thank you.
So, thank you.